My name is Alara Voss. I am 31 years old. And the morning a stranger knocked my door, I was at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold beside me and a lease renewal form I had been meaning to sign for 11 days and had not yet touched. The knock came at 8:23 on a Tuesday in October. Not a delivery knock. Not the distracted double tap of someone dropping a package and already walking away. A deliberate knock. 3 times. Evenly spaced. The knock of someone who had driven somewhere specific and intended to be heard. I opened the door. The woman standing on my porch was 61 years old. Gray coat. Leather briefcase worn soft at the corners from years of use. Reading glasses pushed up into silver hair. She looked at my face the way people look when they have been carrying a photograph of someone for a long time and are checking the reality against the image. She said, "You are Alara Voss." Not a question. "Yes," I said. "My name is Helen Marsh," she said. "I was your grandmother's attorney. She asked me to find you. It took me 2 years." I stood in my doorway for a long moment. "Come in," I said. "Before I tell you what Helen Marsh had in that briefcase, and I will tell you everything, I need to take you back. To a house in Clover, South Carolina. To a girl who waited every week for a letter that always arrived and somehow never reached her. And to the morning she found out why. If you're watching this right now, drop your city in the comments. Just your city. I read everyone. Like this video if this story speaks to you. Now, back to Clover. I grew up in a house that looked fine from the outside. That is the most precise way I know to say it. From the outside, painted porch, clean windows, a mailbox my father had installed with the same care he applied to everything visible. It looked like a house where things were fine. My parents, Warren and Donna Voss, were organized people. My father worked in municipal planning. My mother managed the household with the efficiency of someone who believed that control was the same thing as safety. Rules were the language they spoke. Order was the thing they loved most. I was not an easy child for them. Not difficult, just interior. Curious in ways they found exhausting. Full of questions they didn't have answers for. The kind of child who needed more space than their particular house had to offer. My grandmother, my father's mother, Rose Voss, was the one person who understood what kind of space I needed. She lived 400 miles away in Asheville, North Carolina. I saw her twice a year at most. But she wrote to me every single week from the time I was 7 years old until I was 18. Every Tuesday, without exception. A letter in a pale blue envelope with my name in her handwriting, looping, unhurried. The handwriting of someone who believed that how you wrote something was as important as what you wrote. I never received a single one. I know that now. I did not know it then. What I knew then was that my grandmother seemed distant. That she never asked about things I had told her. That her Christmas calls were warm but oddly general, like she was talking to a version of me she couldn't quite see clearly. I told myself she was busy. Elderly. That letters were hard to keep up with. I was 17 when I found the box. My mother was at a neighbor's. My father was at work. I was looking for a pair of scissors in the hall closet, the deep one behind the winter coats, and I found a shoebox on the top shelf pushed to the back behind a stack of folded tablecloths. The shoebox was sealed with masking tape. My name was written on the side in my mother's handwriting. I stood on the step stool for a long time before I opened it. Inside were 61 letters. Pale blue envelopes. My name on every one. My grandmother's handwriting. All of them opened, carefully, with a letter opener, the way my mother did everything. All of them resealed with tape. All of them kept. I sat on the closet floor and read for 2 hours. My grandmother had written about her garden, about books she thought I would love, about her own life at my age, about a piece of land she owned outside Asheville that she had been saving for years for a reason she said she would explain when I was old enough. She had written in a letter dated 3 years earlier, "Alara, I've been sending these every week, and I wonder sometimes if you are getting them. Your silence worries me. But I will keep writing because you deserve to be written to whether or not the letters arrive." I put every letter back in the box. I put the box back on the shelf. I resealed the tape the way I had found it. I went in my room and sat on my bed and looked at the ceiling for a long time. I did not confront my mother. I was 17. I understood instinctively that confronting my mother would cost me the only thing I had, the knowledge. And knowledge, I had learned early, was safer kept quiet until you knew what to do with it. I left for college the following year. I found my grandmother's phone number through directory assistance. I called her from my dormitory on a Sunday afternoon in September. She answered on the second ring. I said, "Grandma, it's Alara." The silence before she spoke lasted 4 full seconds. Then she said, "I knew you would call. I knew you would find a way." We talked for 2 hours. The first real conversation of my life with a woman who had been writing to me every week for 10 years. She died 14 months later. Before I could visit. Before I could sit at her kitchen table. Before I could tell her in person what finding that box had meant. She died, and I did not know there was an attorney. I did not know about the land. I did not know she had left instructions. 2 years passed. And then Helen Marsh knocked my door at 8:23 on a Tuesday in October with a worn leather briefcase and a photograph of me and 2 years' worth of searching behind her eyes. Helen Marsh sat at my kitchen table and opened her briefcase with the calm efficiency of someone who had rehearsed this moment many times and was relieved it had finally arrived. She set 3 things on the table: a manila folder, a smaller white envelope with my name in my grandmother's handwriting, and a single pale blue envelope, sealed unopened, exactly like the ones in the shoebox. "Your grandmother came to me 8 years ago," Helen said. "She was concerned about her estate. Specifically, she was concerned about whether her wishes would actually reach you." She looked at me carefully. "She suspected the letters weren't arriving," she said. "She never said directly, but she hired me to make sure that when the time came, I would find you personally, not through family, not through the mail." I looked at the pale blue envelope. "She knew," I said. "She suspected," Helen said. "She couldn't prove it, but she prepared as if it were true." She opened the manila folder. My grandmother had owned 14 acres of land outside Asheville. Wooded, elevated, a view of the Blue Ridge that Helen described as the kind that made people understand why someone would hold land for 40 years without selling it. She had placed it in a trust 7 years ago. Sole beneficiary me. Current assessed value $380,000. She had also maintained a separate savings account for 12 years. Untouched. Accruing interest with the patience of someone who understood that money held still grew in ways money spent never could. The savings account balance was $94,000. I sat very still. She kept writing, I said, even when she thought the letters weren't arriving. "Every week," Helen said, until she couldn't. I picked up the small white envelope with my name on it. My grandmother's handwriting. Unhurried. Looping. The handwriting of someone who believed how you wrote was as important as what you wrote. I did not open it yet. "My mother," I said. Helen looked at me without flinching. "Your grandmother never asked me to take any action against anyone," she said. "She asked me to find you and give you the full picture. What you do with the full picture is yours to decide." I called my father that evening. He answered on the third ring. His voice had the settled quality of someone who has spent 30 years telling himself that what he doesn't ask about isn't his responsibility. "I found the box," I said, "when I was 17. 61 letters. I need you to know that I know." A silence so long I could hear the kitchen clock on his end. "Alara." "I'm not calling to fight," I said. "I'm calling because Grandma's attorney came to my door today. Grandma left me her land and her savings and a letter I haven't opened yet. I wanted you to hear it from me." Another silence. "I didn't know about the letters," he said finally. "I know you didn't," I said. "That's a different conversation." I called my mother the following morning. She answered before the second ring. She always answered fast. It was her way of controlling the opening of a conversation. "Alara," she said.
Warm. Practiced.
"I found the box when I was 17, I said. I didn't say anything then. I'm saying it now." The warmth left her voice like water leaving a glass. "I don't know what you think you." 61 letters, I said. Pale blue envelopes. All opened. All resealed. All kept in a shoebox with my name on it. Silence. "She confused you," My mother said finally. She had her own ideas about how to raise children, and they were not. Mom.
She stopped.
I'm not asking for an explanation, I said. I'm telling you what I know. And I'm telling you that Grandma knew too. She just handled it differently than I would have. What does that mean? It means, I said, that she spent 8 years making sure I would be fine without anyone's permission, including yours. I said goodbye. Hung up. I sat at my kitchen table with the pale blue envelope in my hands for a long time before I opened it. I opened the letter on a Wednesday morning. Not the night Helen left. Not the morning after the call with my mother. I needed one full day between the information and the reading. My grandmother would have understood that. She was the kind of woman who believed that the right moment for something was not always the first available moment. Wednesday morning.
Coffee.
The lease renewal form still and signed on the table. Early light through the kitchen window, the particular pale gold that October gives you in Nashville before the clouds come in. I broke the seal. The letter was 2 pages. Her handwriting. Unhurried. Every word chosen with the care of someone who knew this was the last letter and wanted it to carry the weight of all the ones that hadn't arrived. She wrote about the land first. About buying it in 1981 with money she had saved for 11 years. About walking it every Sunday morning for 40 years. About the way the light hit the ridge in October. Exactly like the light coming through my kitchen window, I realized, though she had never seen my kitchen. She wrote, I kept writing because you deserve to be written to. I don't know if the letters arrived. I suspect they didn't. But I decided that the uncertainty was not a reason to stop. You were worth writing to whether or not anyone was reading. I set the page down, picked it up again. She wrote about the trust, about Helen, about the savings account, and why she had kept it separate and untouched for 12 years. I kept it separate, she wrote, because separate means yours. Not subject to interpretation, not dependent on anyone's good intentions. Just yours, waiting, the way I have been waiting to have a real conversation with you since the first letter I sent in 1999. We'd had one real conversation. 2 hours on a Sunday in September in my dormitory room. One conversation in 10 years of attempted letters. One conversation before she died. She wrote about that call at the end of the letter. When you called me that Sunday, I knew immediately that you had found a way through whatever was in the way. I don't know what the way was. I know you. I know you found it. That call was everything I had been writing toward for 10 years, and I want you to know that 2 hours was enough. You gave me 2 hours, and it was enough. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. I sat at that kitchen table for 40 minutes without moving. The coffee went cold. The lease form stayed unsigned. The October light moved across the table slowly, the way light moves when you are not watching it. Then I got up, made fresh coffee, signed the lease form, called Helen, and told her I was ready to proceed. I drove to Asheville on a Saturday in November. Helen met me at the land. We parked at the end of a gravel road and walked in through a gate she unlocked with a key she had been keeping for 2 years. 14 acres. Old growth, oak and poplar, and something older underneath both. A trail worn into the ground by 40 years of Sunday morning walks. A clearing near the top of the ridge where the view opened suddenly and completely. The Blue Ridge in November. Bare and enormous, and exactly the kind of thing that makes you understand why someone would hold land for 40 years without selling it. I stood in that clearing for a long time. I thought about a woman writing a letter every Tuesday for 10 years to a granddaughter she was not sure could read them. I thought about pale blue envelopes in a shoebox on a closet shelf. I thought about 61 letters opened carefully with a letter opener and resealed with tape and kept, for what reason I still did not fully understand, and had decided I did not need to. I thought about 2 hours on a Sunday in September. A dormitory room.
A phone.
A silence that lasted 4 seconds before my grandmother said, I knew you would find a way. I had found a way. She had made sure there was something waiting when I did. I did not sell the land. I have not sold it. I will not sell it. I go back 3 times a year. I walk the Sunday morning trail. I stand in the clearing and look at the ridge and think about 40 years of the same walk and what it means to hold something that long without needing to explain why. My father calls occasionally. The calls are short and careful and slightly better than they were before October. He does not mention my mother.
I do not ask.
My mother has not called. I have not called her. That is not permanent, but it is honest. And honest is where I have decided to start. Helen sent me a note in December. A card, handwritten. She said, "Your grandmother would be proud. She was always proud. She just needed you to be able to hear it." I put the card in the envelope with the letter. I keep them both in the drawer, where I keep things that matter. My name is Ilara Voss. I am 31 years old. My mother burned 61 letters. My grandmother wrote 62. The 62nd one found me. If you are waiting for something that was taken from you to find its way back, I want to tell you something. Sometimes the people who love you find a way around the people who don't. Sometimes the letter takes 2 years and a stranger at your door and a worn leather briefcase. But it arrives. It always arrives. Leave one word in the comments. Just one. I read every single one. Subscribe if you want to hear the next story. It is already waiting.